Chapter 140, Questioning a Gentleman with Wine. Oh, as the saying goes, since ancient times, saints have all been solitary, only those who drink will leave their names behind. 1. Thus, the people who are aware of the 8 pleasures of drinking are not many, and it's not strange that Mr. is unaware. You're not to blame. Ling Tian's words left Yi Qingqian's face alternating between red and white, awkward beyond belief. However, I believe Mr. is aware of the 8 commandments of drinking? I haven't heard of this as such, tell me more. Yi Qingqian felt a bead of cold sweat drip down his face, more than half out of his drunken stupor. Then, I'm sure that Mr. will know of the 8 mortals of wine. Ling Tian spoke with a tone of certainty, seemingly reassuring himself. This. Yi Qingqian turned into a shade of persimmon, a brilliant red tinged with purple. AI, to think that Mr. would also be unaware of this, I really feel estranged. The regret in Ling Tian's voice became more and more prominent, as well as the disappointment. Shaking his head, he seemed unwilling to continue talking. It was only after a long time which he whispered with what seemed to be his last ray of hope, then, Mr. should definitely know about the 8 locations of drinking, right? This sentence carried a hint of reproach, as though censuring him for bragging that no one was more knowledgeable about wine when compared to him, but he could not even answer such simple questions. At least he should be aware of such a simple question, right? Yi Qingqian had already reached the point that he was completely ashamed, afraid to show his face. His face was red, bordering on purple, his expression carrying a subtle sign of begging for mercy, his originally proud head slowly slinking inwards. He looked as though he was searching for a hole to throw himself into. To be able to reduce the immortal of wine of this era, a peerless expert of the pugilistic community, to such a stage in a mere few sentences, most likely, only Ling Tian could do such a thing. Now, and in the future. Yi Qingqian let out a long sigh, dispirited beyond belief. He snatched the wine jar over, pouring for himself a cup, intending to down it to chase away his sorrows. However, he thought of how he had acted so conceitedly, arrogantly looking down on a junior whose random phrases already left him far behind in the dust. How could he be deserving of such a heavenly wine? As this thought sunk in, he could not help but slowly put down the wine cup, letting out a long sigh. Ling Tian seemed to have suddenly snapped back into reality, his face carrying an embarrassed look as he said, "Junior didn't watch his mouth, please do not take my words seriously. Since we are all lovers of wine and merely comparing notes, if there's any area which I've offended you, please forgive me." Ling Tian lifted up his cup in a salute, as if to make amends. Merely comparing notes? Yi Qingqian almost jumped out of his seat. You have just destroyed this old man's decades-long pride of being a wine connoisseur, making me seem so worthless, and you actually say that this is mere commentary. If this was heard by the rest of the wine-lover population, where should this old man put his face to? Yi Qingqian was all ready to jump out and rage. But upon realizing that his knowledge was indeed far below the other party, what harm was there in Ling Tian berating him? It was not like he had the knowledge to answer every question which Ling Tian posed. Furthermore, the matters which he did not know, there was a high chance that the majority of the wine lovers would not be aware of as well. Besides, Ling Tian had a valid point, which was the fact that they were comparing notes, so under what grounds should he get angry? What could he be angry over? He could only smile dispiritedly, unconsciously sipping on his wine cup. The original fragrant wine now suddenly tasted so bland and tasteless. It was like a mute being fed a mouth of Chinese gold thread, too bitter but unable to convey it. Having met with Mr. today, the troubles in my mind for a few years have been cleared one by one, making me feel very comforted. The lump in my chest has also been cleared. I really have Mr. to thank for all this help. Standing up, Ling Tian performed a deep bow of respect, giving off the impression that he was about to leave. However, his expression betrayed a look of melancholy, as though he was about to bid farewell to a bosom buddy. This merely lasted for an instant, before being forcefully covered. What kind of person was Yi Qingchen? To have met someone who truly understood his feelings towards wine, to be able to hold a conversation with himself, and furthermore being more knowledgeable, how could he so easily let the person go? Furthermore, after hearing the 8 pleasures of wine, 8 locations of wine, and etc., he had long felt a niche in his heart for an answer. Thus, with a whoosh sound, he had stood up and grasped onto Ling Tian's sleeve to stop him, saying hurriedly, "Young noble, please hold." His back facing Yi Qingchen, Ling Tian's eyes flickered with a barely perceptible light, as he turned back slowly. However, his eyes had changed to a look of questioning. "I wonder what Mr. has to bestow upon me?" Yi Qingchen's eyes bulged, his beard trembling as he tried to speak, but found out that he could not speak. With his status, does he really have to say something like, "Will young noble please enlighten me on the matters of wine?" If that was the case, then he might as well just commit suicide by slamming his head on the wall. While it was customary for a person who wanted answers to beseech first, Yi Qingchen was after all a 60-year-old man. How could he throw his face away just to ask a 15-year-old kid to educate him? However, if he wanted to keep his face, this would mean throwing away the chance to find out the mysteries of wine. What should he do now? Ling Tian secretly grinned to himself upon seeing the dilemma on Yi Qingchen's face. For such otherworldly men such as Yi Qingchen, Ling Tian would never dare to look down on them, and even more not have any thoughts of playing games with them. Thus, to reduce one of them to this point, Ling Tian was very pleased with himself, but to this point, Yi Qingchen was still a mystery to Ling Tian at this point. An exceptionally confusing, hard to decipher, and probably unsolvable mystery. Where did he originate from? What was his purpose here? How many secrets did he have on him? How much does he know? Questions popped up one after another in Ling Tian's mind. Before these questions were answered, even if Yi Qingchen wanted to go, Ling Tian would not let him do so. However, Yi Qingchen was not someone who would give in to power, wealth, or charm. To get news from his mouth, Ling Tian had to take a different path. From the time Ling Tian had bade Ling Chen to take the azure bamboo leaf from his own collection, Yi Qingchen had already fallen into Ling Tian's plans. Thus, Ling Tian only put on a difficult expression, as he lamented, "Mister, it was hard to come across someone as agreeable as you, and I regret that we have not crossed paths sooner. Mr. is someone with remarkable ability, and furthermore erudite in nature. This leaves Ling Tian in admiration. I wished to speak more to you originally, but the day is growing dark. Ordinarily, this would not be a problem, but with the state that sky-bearing is in now, if I stay out too long, my family would be concerned." Chapter 141, Becoming Sworn Brothers. At this point, Ling Tian snuck a look at Yi Qingchen. Seeing his disappointed expression, Ling Tian could not help but feel guilty. Using such schemes to trick such an expert, was it considered being overboard? However, since matters had already reached to such a stage, regret was not enough to halt Ling Tian. Furthermore, it was merely for some news and information. Ling Tian did not harbor any unsavory thoughts towards him. This managed to calm down Ling Tian's guilty conscience, and he continued muttering, "Ling Tian hates the fact that I met Mr. at such a late timing, and hate the fact that I could not stay through the night to speak with Mr. If Mr. does not look down on Ling Tian, would you be willing to come to my residence and discuss about life while indulging in wine?" Hearing such an offer, Yi Qingchen could not help but get excited. Especially the phrase "indulge in wine," it completely chased away any depressed feelings he might have felt. He laughed heartily as he bellowed, "What sort of words are those? An invitation by young noble himself, this Yi couldn't be happier to accept." Under his elation, he subconsciously changed his term of speaking, from an arrogant "this old man" to become "this Yi." Unconsciously, he was already treating Ling Tian as being on equal grounds as him. rather than as someone of a junior generation. Ling Tian smiled in response and gestured with a hand towards the entrance as he smiled. If that's the case, then Junior will help this senior heft his signboard and see if you can get more business. At this sentence, Yi Qingchen laughed so hard that his beard twitched uncontrollably. I doubt so. With your name as the #1 silk pants, holding my signboard would result in no more business for me, I'm afraid. Ha 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 ha. Little brother, this is depriving me of my business. If this Yi runs out of money to buy wine in the future, I'll come knocking at your residence instead. Ha ha ha, whenever senior comes, this junior will sweep the floor clean to welcome you. It's just that this junior has a small lodging. I hope senior won't mind. Ling Tian spoke with a grin. Both of them jested and joked, but hidden inside their words were bits of truth, thrown amidst the false niceties. While their conversation sounded like airy words, they could be treated as serious statements too. Both of them burst into laughter again at the end of their conversation. After the moment of laughter, Yi Qingchen suddenly spoke out, "Young noble, us addressing each other so formally seems as though we are drawing a divide on purpose. If you don't despise this fortune teller here, how about you call me elder brother, and I call you younger brother from now on? How does that sound?" Ling Tian beamed. This little brother originally wanted to bring this up, but was afraid that an expert like elder brother would not agree to having a connection to someone of the mortal dust such as a younger brother. Because I was afraid of offending you, I had kept it in. Since elder brother has already spoken so, this was really warms this younger brother's heart, ha ha. Yi Qingchen was pleased beyond words, pretending to bluster as he jested. Nonsense, does elder brother look like that sort of person? Ling Tian hurriedly apologized while laughing it off. But deep in his heart, he was thinking, you don't need to be humble. If it wasn't for my heavenly wine, I probably would not even see your shadow right now. Seeing Ling Tian apologize in such an earnest manner, Yi Qingchen chuckled, little brother need not hold in your criticism. This elder brother here rarely meets anyone in the last 10 years, thus am full of foolish conceit. I'm ignorant and narrow-minded. If not for me coming over to Skybearing this time, I would not have been aware that the heavens had given birth to such a refined and accomplished youth such as yourself. Although his words were admitting to his faults, it carried a hint of solitude and loneliness. Seeing that Yi Qingchen was not at all particular about avoiding taboos, Ling Tian could only smile wryly. His actions conveyed how candid and open he was, and this raised a few more points for him in Ling Tian's heart. Exiting from the private room, the duo was greeted by the various guards which stood up and bowed. This sound alerted the ladies, who were seated in another private room. They stood up hurriedly and exited their room. Ling Tian felt completely careless and worryless. With a flash of his body, he appeared behind Yi Qingchen, pushing him forward as he grinned, "This is Mr. Yi, from today onwards, since he's my sworn elder brother, when you guys see him, you need to pay your respects too." The moment he spoke, everyone except for Ling Chen took on a change in expression. This was especially so for the Ling family's guards. They were all wondering what sort of mental illness had stricken the young noble again, to reduce his status to a point where he accepted a dubious swindler as a sworn brother. As for the bodyguards of the Yu family, they were thinking about how this poor silk pants kid probably got scammed by this swindler. However, while this was no big matter, no one dared to speak up for fear that Ling Tian would fly into a rage due to humiliation, directing his anger to his underlings. Wouldn't dying in such a way be an injustice? Thus, all of them stood by the side, looking at the scene as though it was a comedy. The Ling family's guards could only salute once again, calling out, paying respects to Mr. Yi. The latter responded with a nod of his head, being neither too servile nor overbearing. A smile bloomed on Ling Tian's face. Evidently, he had already mentally prepared himself for such a scenario. On the other hand, Yu Bingyan had a face of confusion. What was her Tian'? Up to this time? Was there another meaning behind this? Maybe the swindler was actually a talented individual who had experienced the vicissitudes of life? At the wave of his hand, and the command, "Let's return." From Ling Tian, the various guards streamed out neatly, clearing a path for them. However, Yi Qingchen loitered behind, grabbing onto Ling Tian's sleeve and whispering, "You rascal, since when did I become your sworn brother? How come even I am unaware of it?" Ling Tian burst out into laughter as he replied, "Elder brother, you were the one who asked me to call you elder brother, and you address me as younger brother. Since we're not born from the same mother, with no blood relation whatsoever, if we're not sworn brothers, then what are we?" Yi Qingchen was rendered speechless by the reply. Although he felt that the reply was pushing it a little too far, he could not put his finger on to what exactly felt wrong. After a moment of pondering, he could only say, "For someone of little brother's stature as well as talent, I would benefit by having such a strong connection as my younger brother, but what? For someone of elder brother's level, don't tell me you still put significance in the customs of incense burning, 3 kowtows and 9 salutes." The words from a man of character, once spoken, cannot be taken back. If you say we're brothers, then we are. With the sun and moon as audiences, the sky as a witness, why bother with all the wishy-washy conventions? Since we address each other as brothers, then we are thus. What other reasons do we need? Seeing him attempting to shirk responsibility, Ling Tian immediately cut off his train of thought, using such overbearing words to force Yi Qingchen to a point of no return. In actuality, Yi Qingchen had no intention of shirking responsibility. However, he realized that if he were to continue declining after hearing what Ling Tian said, then that would be too pretentious and unreasonable of him. As such, he merely smiled and said, "Little brother, you have a sharp tongue indeed." What kind of person was Yi Qingchen? He immediately caught on to the fact that Ling Tian was trying to drag him into the same boat as himself, using him to achieve his means. However, he suddenly realized that it was actually such a joyous thing to have a person like Ling Tian as his brother, and instead of being repulsed, he felt over the moon. Yi Qingchen had led a solitary and impoverished life for his first half, drifting around everywhere as a vagrant. Luckily, he had met a peerless expert and managed to cultivate a top-level martial skill, which allowed him to use his newfound talents to survive. However, his heart had always been lonely and cold. After all humans desire love and warmth. Who would say no to familial love? Though he knew that Ling Tian was using him in a way, having a sort of relative to care for made him feel a comfortable, but foreign, warmth in his heart. Ling Tian suddenly stood still, and faced Yi Qingchen seriously as his eyes revealed utmost sincerity. "Elder brother, if I say that I have no ulterior motives, you would probably not believe. However, whether you believe or not, this little brother only has one thing to say. If I don't see eye to eye with someone, even if he's a top martial exponent in the world capable of opening up unlimited possibilities for me, I would still be unwilling to acknowledge the person. As the saying goes, a horse's worth is only shown through a long journey, and a person's heart is only seen through the passage of time. I hope that elder brother will witness my actions and use it to forge a bond of camaraderie." Yi Qingchen was rooted on the spot, overcome with emotions. From the sincerity in Ling Tian's tone, Yi Qingchen was aware that all those words he spoke came from the bottom of his heart and could not help but feel touched at his declaration. He nodded his head solemnly, saying, "Little brother, I trust you completely. In my life, this elder brother has perused through countless lives and I have faith in my own abilities to read people. Trust is based off a person's speech. If there is no trust, how can one achieve any standing amongst humans?" The two of them glanced at each other, clasped their hands, bursting out into laughter. As the duo walked out of the bar, the clouds above the western part of the skies were already dyed a crimson red. Unknowingly, they had actually spent over half a day in that little alley bar. Ling Tian spied on Yu Bingyan trailing behind him, unusually silent, but occasionally raising her head with a hint of bitterness in her eyes. With a quick twist of his mind, he deliberately slowed down his steps to walk side by side with her. Yu Bingyan acknowledged his presence by raising her head, before her tiny mouth turned into a pout and turned her head the other way with a HMPH sound. Ling Tian laughed out at the scene. What's this? How did a peony suddenly start growing on the mouth of my little sister Yanner? Although it looks good, this is not the place for it. Come, let this brother pluck it for you. Else when we arrive back home, the last Ling Chen will end up placing it inside the vase. As he spoke, he jokingly stretched out a hand, ready to touch Yu Bingyan's mouth. Yu Bingyan exerted her utmost to control her facial expressions and swatted Ling Tian's hands to the side, before she let out a putchy sound, and burst into laughter. She originally wanted to hold it in, but realized that it was too late. She could not help but stomp her foot viciously, pouting once again. Ling Tian chuckled and leaned closer to her ear as he whispered, "Yanner, as friends, I really do not want to put you in a spot, so how can you be willing to create trouble for me?" His voice was so low that only she could hear. While this sentence did not explain much, it pierced down deep into Yu Bingyan's heart. The words drilled themselves into her ear, one by one, and Yu Bingyan suddenly felt as though her head was heating up. Her eyes started to water and her nose wrinkled as a wave of warmth flooded her heart. Turns out that he was really thinking for me. Even though she had long come to this conclusion, she still felt a huge sense of bliss, listening to the words coming out from Ling Tian personally. The indignance, grief and heartache she previously felt was suddenly swept away without a trace, making her feel as though she could burst out into song. Watching how Yu Bingyan had her head lowered, yet secretly sneaking glances towards his direction, with her eyes full of satisfaction and shyness, coupled with her feminine charms, it led to amorous feelings growing within Ling Tian, to the point where he wanted to pull her close into his embrace. However, Yu Bingyan only snorted and said, "What sort of person do you think you are? I can't be bothered with creating trouble for you, HMPH." Her face looked like the crimson clouds above them as she spoke, feeling burning hot and revealing a posture of a little girl. She could not help but stamp her foot again, dashing forward and leaving behind a wave of fragrance. "Brother, you've literally brought this elder brother's appetite to the top of the heavens," Yi Qingchen lamented. Upon returning to the Ling mansion, Ling Tian sent Yi Qingchen over to his own courtyard, assigning Ling Chen to ensure his comfort, before paying his respects to his parents and grandparents. This was a sort of routine work for him, and after exchanging a few pleasantries, he went over to find Mr. Qin as well. Ling Tian was especially worried for Mr. Qin, as the death of a spouse at his age was not a small blow that could be recovered even with 2 or 3 years. Seeing him hale and healthy, full of energy, Ling Tian could finally relax and rush back to his courtyard. After the stone in Yu Bingyan's heart had been alleviated by Ling Tian, she knew that she was not suitable to remain and participate in the following conversation. Thus, she retreated back to her room early. When Ling Tian returned to his residence, Yi Qingchen was already waiting anxiously. Ling Tian laughed heartily as he said, "Elder brother, there's no need to rush. I'll let you enjoy yourself tonight. To indulge in good wine, one must first be patient. If one is too impatient, then even the most heavenly of wines would be bland and tasteless. Don't forget, when it comes to matters of wine, even the tiniest of matters will not be able to slip past my eyes." Chapter 142, Best Wine Snack. After returning to the Ling mansion, Ling Tian invited Yi Qingchen to his own courtyard. After which, he gave a few instructions to Ling Chen and went to pay his respects to his grandparents and parents. Then, he went to visit Mr. Qin. With regards to Mr. Qin's health, Ling Tian had always been extremely worried. The death of one's spouse was not something a person would be able to walk out of easily in a mere few years. Only after seeing that Mr. Qin was still healthy and slowly regaining his spirit did Ling Tian let down his worries. Yu Bingyan was also an intelligent person and knew that it wasn't suitable for her to participate in every of Ling Tian's affairs. Thus, she also went back to her room and had an early night. After Ling Tian returned to his courtyard, Yi Qingchen had already waited till his neck was long. Ling Tian laughed and said, "Old brother, do not be anxious. I will definitely have a good drink with old brother tonight. But before we drink good wine, we must first calm our hearts and soothe our temper. If not, the best of wines would become tasteless even if it enters our mouth. Don't tell me old brother forgot about what happened just now. There is little that can escape this little brother's eyes with regards to wine." Yi Qingchen was instantly enlightened as his face turned red and felt embarrassed. His interest had already been piqued by Ling Tian and he was indeed extremely anxious currently. He could not help but smile. "Brother, how do you know so much at such a young age? You don't look like a 15 to 16-year-old teen but a 60 to 70-year-old fox instead. No. I'm afraid you must be a 100-year-old sly fox at the very least. If not, how can you have such brilliant accomplishments?" Both of them burst out into laughter together. A short while later, Ling Chen walked into the room with a few others, each holding onto a wooden box. They walked into the room respectfully, placed the box down before taking their leave with a bow. Ling Tian then instructed, "Chener, go and fetch some wine snacks." Ling Chen acknowledged and walked out of the room. After the wooden boxes entered the room, Yi Qingchen felt that this small room was suddenly filled with a dense and unique wine fragrance. At times it seemed so elegant, at times it seemed so dense. It seemed as though it was out of the secular realm but yet as though it was intoxicated with worldly affairs. The fragrances from the many different wines mixed with each other, but yet the fragrance of every single wine was so distinct. From just the fragrance of the wine, it had already surpassed any other wine which Yi Qingchen had ever tasted in his life. By just smelling the fragrance of the wine, Yi Qingchen felt as though his whole body was light and floating. Seeing the 6 wooden boxes in front of him, he could immediately tell that there were 6 jugs of wine in front of him. Thinking about how he would be able to taste such otherworldly fine wine, and actually having the fortune of tasting 6 of them, the originally steady and calm mental state of Yi Qingchen began to grow flustered. He stroked his beard with his hand as his eyes were already shut in intoxication. The door then opened again and Ling Chen walked in with a small jade plate. In the center of the tray, there was a plate made of white jade. The plate was filled with round bin-sized balls which were red in color. Yi Qingchen then remembered about what Ling Tian said about the real wine snacks. He could not help but take a curious look at what kind of magnificent thing this young wine saint would bring out as the real wine snack. Taking a look over, Yi Qingchen's eyes widened as his jaw dropped in shock. Only after a short while did he look at Ling Tian, pointing to the plate with his finger trembling. Brother, this is what you were talking about, the real wine snacks?" His tone was filled with incredulity. In the center of the intricately designed white jade dish, it was filled with over 100 shelled peanuts. Ling Tian smiled and nodded, "That's right." The words he said were confident and as though it was only to be expected. Yi Qingchen felt a ball of anger rising in his heart. "You invited me to your place just to eat peanuts? Are you making a fool out of me? Old brother, it seems that you are still. Perhaps I can only say that old brother likes to drink but don't know how to drink." Ling Tian smiled profoundly. "Why is this so? This you would like to hear the reason." Yi Qingchen was both angered but yet found it to be a joke. This old man had been drinking wine for my whole lifetime and you actually dare to say that I don't know how to drink? I want to hear what kind of reason you have. Unknowingly, he changed the way he addressed himself back, as though he wanted to say that their brotherhood would end right here if Ling Tian could not provide him with a satisfactory reply. For all those who love wine, Drinking wine is a kind of enjoyment and tasting wine is a supreme boundary. The wine would definitely contain the sourness and sweetness of life. The wine would definitely contain the bitterness and spiciness of the world. The hundreds of different emotions of the world can all be presented in a glass of wine. A different person with a different character would be able to taste a different flavor from the same glass of wine. What does old brother think about that? Ling Tian said confidently as he began his theory of wine. Yi Qingchen's brows furrowed as he nodded his head. Be it tasting or drinking wine, the only request of every wine drinker would be to have a good wine. When it is accompanied with any kind of dish, it can make the wine lose its original taste and cause one to be unable to fully appreciate the flavor of the wine. But if one drinks the wine without anything to go with it, it would harm the body and intoxicate the mind. As such, there are only a few dishes which don't affect the taste of the wine that can be called the best wine snack. These peanuts do not have a strong flavor and its taste is both natural and refined. This can be said to be the best wine snack. First, it would not harm the taste of the wine. Second, it would not harm the body. This is the reason why this little brother thinks that it is the best wine snack. While a smile was plastered over Ling Tian's face, there was a tinge of reminiscing in his eyes. When he was in the pits of despair in his previous life, his martial arts crippled and thrown out of the sect, he could only feel nothing but hopelessness and desperation in his heart. If not for the peanuts which were grown underground, Ling Tian would have probably starved to death, much less get his revenge in the future. Just from this reason alone, it was enough for Ling Tian to recognize the peanuts to be the best wine snack in the world. While the words he said were logical, how could it be possible that peanuts were the only dish in the world that do not harm the body and flavor of wine? If Ling Tian were to say such a thing in his previous life, he would probably be drowned in banana and watermelon skins instantly. But when Yi Qingchen heard what Ling Tian said, he felt as though Ling Tian made a great deal of sense. In this instant, he felt that this dean did indeed live up to his name of being a wine saint. Brother does indeed make sense. As compared to brother's depth of knowledge, this old brother here can be said to have lived my life for nothing. I am indeed someone who only like to drink wine. Yi Qingchen lamented. Old brother praises me too much. Ling Tian then glanced at Ling Chen before continuing. Today, this little brother had asked this last to bring out 6 fine wine which this little brother brewed personally. I shall accompany old brother to gaze at the moon while we enjoy the wine. I would love to do so. Yi Qingchen burst out into laughter. Looking at the 6 wooden boxes, he could not help but twiddle his fingers anxiously as he drooled with desire. Ling Tian smiled and gave a signal. Then, Ling Chen walked over and opened the first wooden crate, taking a jug of wine out. While they were all brewed by him personally, Ling Tian did not dare be careless either. He took the jug of wine over carefully and broke the seal on the jug. In that instant, a dense aroma permeated out from the jug, filling the room with a dense wine fragrance. As Ling Tian tilted the jug, the clear and creamy wine was poured out from the jug. Up until the end, Ling Tian lifted the jug of wine up higher and higher as the line of wine being poured out became thinner and thinner. But even until it was thread-like thin, the line of wine was never broken. This little brother calls this wine drunk immortal soul. It was made from the essence of 5 different crops, basking in the sun and drying in the air for 3 days and night. It is then fermented and brewed 9 times each. After which, the wine is buried into the earth for 3 years to remove the spiciness of the wine and increase the density and thickness of the wine. Old brother, I wonder if this wine is to your liking? Yi Qingchen picked up the glass of wine like it was treasure, as his usually steady hands began to tremble. He then lifted the glass up to his lips and took a small sip of the wine. In that instant, he felt a strange warm liquid flow down his throat as a wave of warmth filled his body with comfort. He then felt like his soul was floating on the clouds as he closed his eyes and reminisced the taste. Only after a long while later did he open his eyes with a bright light. Good wine. It is indeed one of its kind and lives up to its name. Ling Tian smiled and waved his hands. Ling Chen then walked forward and shifted the glass cup away from Yi Qingchen. She then placed a cup made of white jade in front of him and a tray of clear water. In that instant, Yi Qingchen revealed a puzzled expression. By the side, Ling Tian had already placed down his jug of drunk immortal soul and picked up another jug of wine. He then smiled. Old brother, this little brother is not trying to make things up. When one drinks many different kinds of wine at once, it is best to change to a different cup for a different wine. Fine wine must definitely be accompanied with a fine glass. The fine glass would be able to help bring out the taste of the wine. Old brother, please rinse your mouth first so you can better taste the flavor of the next wine. If the flavor of both wines end up mixing with each other, how would you be able to taste the beauty of the next wine? With enlightenment, Yi Qingchen said, That's right, the saying hearing a gentleman's words beats 10 years of studying is indeed true. This simple sentence by you already triumphs over my decades of knowledge. He then lifted up the clear water and rinsed his mouth before sitting back upright. The wine which flowed out from Ling Tian's jug was like a viscous-like juice with its aroma filling the room. The wine is light yellow in color, making it seem extremely royal and illusory. This wine is called Luna Fragrance. Ling Tian said calmly, this is made from the essence of an 8th-month cassia accompanied with the essence of 5 different grains. It is then brewed and fermented 9 times each and buried under a cassia tree for at least 3 years before this wine is formed. Old brother, please try a glass. Chapter 143, Hero's Blood. Yi Qingchen had long been at a loss of words from shock. Drinking the second glass, the fine and exquisite wine slid down his throat and into his stomach. Yi Qingchen closed his eyes, unwilling to open them even after a long time. He then said with a dreamy tone, this wine indeed lives up to its name of Luna. The smell of the wine is so pure and noble, percolating the soul of a person after drinking it. Closing my eyes, I can feel as though my body is light and floating, as though I am in the moon palace. My dear brother, you have gotten this brother into trouble. Yi Qingchen sighed in his heart as a drop of tear fell from the corner of his eyes. After drinking this wine, can there be any more wine in the world worth drinking? Since the ancient times, sages have only the company of solitude. Only those who drink leave behind a reputation next to their name. But even these sages would not dare to say that they can recognize all wine in the world. Brother need not make such a remark, try this first. With a flick of his sleeves, another jug of wine appeared in Ling Tian's hands. Opening the seal, a wave of refined dream-like fragrance filled the room. Like a dream, like an illusion, sometimes real, sometimes abstract, filled with a myriad of changes. This little brother calls this wine Maiden's Heart. Ling Tian then looked at Ling Chen with a smile and she could not help but smile bashfully. The one thing in the world never understood is the heart of a maiden. Cloudy at times, rainy at times, angry at times, happy at times. As compared to the complex heart of a married lady, it is even more unpredictable. This wine is made after 2 years of hard work, formed from the essence of 100 flowers, the fragrance of 6 fruits and the soul of 5 grains. After 9 rounds of fermentation and steaming, it is sealed and soaked in an ice-cold pond to absorb the essence of the world. Only after soaking it for 5 years, at the very least, can it be considered to be complete. There is a total of 9 jugs of these wine and they were sealed for a total of 9 years, earning the name of 99 Maiden's Heart. Amidst the name hides the bitterness, sourness, sweetness and spiciness when a maiden grows up. As one drinks this wine, the figure of a cute, mischievous, angsty, sorrowful and worrisome girl next door figure would appear in the heart. After drinking a mouth of this wine, one would unknowingly feel their hearts race, mind long and soul shake. To let old brother have a good time today, I made an exception to take a jug out." Yi Qingchen closed his eyes in thought as he twiddled with his beard. A short while later, he smiled and sighed, "By just hearing your description, this foolish brother is already drunk before drinking it. Good wine. Good wine. Let me try it." Raising his glass, the wine inside was green like jade and white like silk. On the surface of the wine, there seemed to be a layer of mist floating around to bewilder the senses of one. It was like the beautiful daughter in a humble family, loving but shy. Wishing to invite someone but yet rejecting him, wishing to reject someone but yet inviting him. This fourth wine is called Hero's Blood. Ling Tian then changed a jug of wine and his tone turned serious. The spiciness of this wine symbolizes the bitterness and pain suffered on the battlefield. The concentrated alcohol is like the silent ambition wishing to burst forth. The color of the wine is like the blood of a hero. As this wine enters the stomach, it is like the resounding war drums breaking the silence of the night, raising the morale of the troops as they let out an earth-shattering battle cry and charge into battle. This wine must definitely be downed in one mouthful. A big and stout hero drinking the blood of his enemy, without a single trace of tears to be seen. Yi Qingchen's originally misty and intoxicated eyes lit up and he lifted up the glass of wine in front of him. He drank the blood-red wine in front of him in a single mouthful and felt like a red-hot blade had just stabbed into his abdomen. In that moment, his body began to tremble and perspiration rolled down his face. After the wine entered his abdomen, he felt as though a ball of fire had risen from his insides. He could not help but feel a sense of heroism rise in his heart and could no longer suppress that sense of repress. He could not help but let out a loud roar. His voice sounded like thunder, resounding through the capital in the night, spreading out far and wide. In the sky-bearing city, thousands of people were shaken awake from their dreams. Ling Tian was startled and never imagined that Yi Qingchen's reaction would be so great. "Ha ha ha. Good wine." As though the chivalrous spirit which he had suppressed for so many years had been unleashed, he could not help but pour himself another glass as he shouted out, "Good wine." "My old brother is indeed an emotional person." Ling Tian laughed and his eyes lit up, "Since brother has such ambitions, then forgive this little brother for his words." Yi Qingchen shook his head, "There isn't anything wrong about your words. As long as one is a man, he would definitely have his ambitious moments. The problem lies with whether or not he has the ability and fate to fulfill it. There are some who would fight for their ambitions and others who would only conceal it deep within their heart. Controlling the world in his palms, being surrounded by beauties all around, as long as one is a man, he would definitely have such thoughts. The most difficult part would be to see if one has the guts and ability to do so. If one has the ability but does not do so, he is a coward. If one does not have the ability but still chooses to do so, he is a fool. If one with confidence, ambition and might fails, it is just his fate. Self-awareness is extremely important. If one does not have self-awareness, he is nothing more than a laughing stock to be ridiculed through the ages. Your old brother still has some self-awareness. This life, I can be a hermit, I can be a chivalrous knight, I can be a hero, but I cannot seek riches and honor. It is not about whether or not I dare, or have the ability, to do so. I just do not have the fortune. He. Yi Qingchen let out a self-deprecating laughter. Actually, it isn't a bad thing that I do not have the fate to do so. At least. Let's not talk about this anymore. There are still 2 more wine. What kind of good wine are they? Don't keep me in suspense any longer. Let this older brother widen his horizons. This little brother will definitely remember the wise words of old brother. Ling Tian was moved. Of the thousands and millions of people in the world, how many of them would be able to know themselves so well? How many of them would be able to control their ambitions? Since Yi Qingchen did not have such ambitions, what is the point to test him and try to force him? Isn't it better to just be genuine friends with him? This can also be considered to be a beautiful thing. Thinking about this, Ling Tian gave up on his original plans. In that instant, he felt his originally uptight mental state become relaxed. To use such worldly schemes against a respectful hermit like Yi Qingchen, Ling Tian was actually guilty in his heart. The moment he let go of this matter, he felt his mood become carefree as he laughed. Old brother is right, it is my mistake. As for the other two wines, they are different from the previous few wines. They are fruit wines. Oh? Fruit wine? Wine brewed from fruits? But this cannot be considered to be too special. That drunken Celestial Towers is also famous for fruit wine, but it cannot be compared to the wine which little brother had offered to me. No, it can be said to be on a completely different level. Yi Qingchen then drank another glass of hero's blood and could not help but exclaim, "Good wine." He then looked at Ling Tian with a smile and look of admiration in his eyes. "Brother, ever since the both of us met, only after that laughter of yours did you really treat me as a real brother." Ling Tian grinned as his face turned red and replied awkwardly, "I hope old brother will not blame me for that. This brother is born in the whirlpool of the sky-bearing empire and just cannot be as carefree as old brother. Thus, I did indeed think a little too much." Yi Qingchen then replied with a smile, "Doesn't matter. With your precarious position, it is a need for you to give more thought to things. You do not need to blame yourself. This old brother is in an extremely good mood today and we shall only talk about wine today. We shall not talk about anything else, lest we spoil the mood. Aren't you going to take out your fruit wine? This old brother here is getting anxious." Ling Tian burst out into laughter and said, "Old brother does not need to be anxious, this little brother will describe them to you in detail." The both of them looked at each other with a smile, as they finally developed a genuine brotherly bond. "This two-fruit wine of mine, one of them is extensive while the other focused. One of them is made from extracting the essence of 100 fruits. The fruits were chosen, washed, skinned, smashed, examined, soaked, extracted, fermented, adjusted, filtered, and underwent countless of complicated processes. Throughout the process, only the purest mountain stream water was used. After that, it is stored into a wood bucket and buried for 3 years. The smell of this wine is fragrant and sweet with a strong aftertaste. As such, it is best drank slowly. Because it was made from 100 different fruits, it can be said to be extremely extensive and is called the 100 fruits wine." Ling Tian explained with a smile. "Oh, but the sweetness of the wine seems to discard the masculinity of a man. No matter how strong the aftertaste, there isn't a point to drinking it." Yi Qingchen was completely uninterested. This wine is still the best, making the blood of one boil and can be said to be the best wine for men. As he said that, he could not help but pour himself another glass of hero's blood. "I never imagined that old brother would like that hero's blood so much. But if that's the case, you will miss this little brother's final type of wine." Ling Tian smiled. Yi Qingchen could not help but reply with frustration and disappointment, "You said that the last 2 wines were fruit wines. If the last one is also a sweet wine, it wouldn't matter if I don't drink it." All of a sudden, Ling Tian let out a sneaky smile. "Old brother, if you really don't drink it, you will definitely regret it. Haze, it's such a pity for this beautiful wine." Yi Qingchen's originally red cheeks became a shade of red darker. "I already said that I do not like to drink fruit wine, but you are still trying to tempt me with it. Can it be even better than the hero's blood?" Ling Tian smiled. "It is impossible to compare both the wines. But if old brother really insists on not drinking it, you are definitely losing out." Yi Qingchen's interest was also piqued by Ling Tian. "Alright, take out that last wine to let me witness an eye-opener." Ling Tian then took out the last jug of wine solemnly and opened the seal on the wine. As the wave of fragrance was released, Yi Qingchen could not help but be disappointed. Yi Qingchen then became a little displeased. Little brother played a fool of this old brother. This is only an ordinary grape wine, what is so special about it? However, Ling Tian could not seem to be bothered about Yi Qingchen's displeasure. He then took out another transparent glass and handed the glass filled with grape wine to Yi Qingchen. "Brother, try this cup of man's blood." Yi Qingchen was stunned for a moment, looking at the bright red grape wine in the transparent glass. It looked no different from the color of fresh blood. If he were to drink it in a mouthful, it was akin to drinking a mouthful of blood. "It is robust indeed,"